Hi, good morning.
For whom is it the morning? It's like noon.
Okay, good morning and good afternoon to everyone. Thank you very much for joining us in this workshop that we're doing with the fabulous Alexa, who is a partner and also head of portfolio at Startup West Guides. I am Azi. I am the product lead of Angels Up Academy at Startup West Guides. And the reason why we're doing this workshop is so that you can get a small introduction of the stuff that you will be able to learn if you are keen to join Angels Up Academy programs. So first, I would like to do a short introduction of what Angels Up Academy is, right before Alexa actually leads the session and leads this workshop. So allow me to. There we go. Thank you. Okay, so what is Angels Up Academy? So Angels Up Academy is an academy to learn how to invest in international startups. So basically, it's a series of programs that we have built from the Startup Wise Guys team, from theory to an actual investment. Now, what is Startup Wise Guys? I assume most of you already know, but just in case some of you don't, Startup Wise Guys is a leading European accelerator program, and we provide funding, mentorship, and support to early stage B2B startups since 2012. So we've been doing this for quite a while. More specifically, for more than 11 years, we have invested in more than 400 startups. We have a portfolio survival rate of 77%, and we have successfully already done 15 exits. So our numbers actually speak for themselves, and these are some of the reasons why for us it made sense to build this academy. So we are already supporting founders all over Europe, but we also want to support and help people who want to become business angels, who then can back up these founders. So there's another reason why, of course, we are also very happy at Startup West Guys is because we actually won this year the best accelerator program at the Global Startup Awards. So, of course, this is also a testament of the great work that has been done in the company for the past years. And is more specifically with Angels App Academy, what we do is we provide a very immersive but also really practical learning experience. And these are the three key reasons that I like enhancing when we talk about why we're doing this. Because, of course, we have been working with startups for so long, we actually have the inside scoop of what works and what doesn't really work. I like calling us that we are like startup diamond miners. We also provide hands-on practice. So we take you from the initial stages of evaluating a startup. So some of the things that Alex is going to share today is how do we do that and how do we select startups, but also making an actual investment in the end. So we will share the startups that are active in our portfolio, actively looking for investment. So you're free to invest in the startup that you are interested in on your own or together with some of the participants from the program. And of course, we also offer access to our exclusive international network of investors who are basically people just like you, interested in investing in startups and who have already done it before in some of the startups from our portfolio. We have a really strong network of experienced investors in Europe and beyond, and these are only some of them. Of course, we've got our amazing CEO and JP, Cristobal Alonso. We have Doug there as well. We have Herty, who's the founder as well of Startup with Guys. We have Gunche, who's a GP, Alexa here in the call, but we also have many, many more mentors who join us every time. And we're so proud of the work that we do at Angels Up Academy because the feedback that we receive from each one of the programs that we've run is really good and always above 9 out of 10. So basically, this is, of course, thanks to the absolutely wonderful investors and mentors that we have in the program. And regarding just a little bit about this investors community, basically it's a community of people who have already invested in at least one startup from our portfolio, all of them in an international group of like-minded investors. It's organized on Slack, and we have channels specifically talking about portfolio, deal flow, active investment deals, of course, co-investment opportunities, due diligence, industry trends, or resources that we share with all the people from our network as well. So we would love to have you on board as well, of course. Then what's happening? And last but not least, what's happening right now? This is the third program that we are running in Angels Up Academy because we started very at the beginning of this year. And this program that we are currently running is the Women Bootcamp. So it's a program where we have only women participants. and we are really happy because they are all very amazing, smart women who are very keen to become business angels, or people who also have already started their business angel journey, but they just want to improve and find ways where they can improve the way that they are doing it right now. So you can see there currently the program is 10 sessions. We have the first 6 sessions that are all very much theoretical, together with some practical exercises that we propose as well. And they're all online live sessions. And then the practical workshops with our head of scouting, with our mentors, with our we always invite investors from the network as well to join and provide a really private fireside chat. We do a final startup pitching competition with everyone on site, and this specifically will be happening in Marbella. So yeah, very happy about it. It's looking amazing, and the women that are part of this program are great as well. And that is pretty much it. If you are interested, of course, you can't join this program because it's already running. But if you are interested in joining the next programs, please, you can either do it just by reaching out to me directly, or you can just go to the website on in Startup Wise Guys. We will share the link here in the chat as well with all of you, where you can apply, and basically we'll come back to you with the next programs that are happening. So, thank you very much. And without further ado, I don't want to take more thunder from the really amazing person who's going to share the workshop today, who is Alexa. Thank you so much, Alexa, for joining and for sharing all the tips about how do we select startups and how do we do the due diligence as well.
Thank you so much, Azzy. I'm thinking, do I am I allowed on LinkedIn to do this kind of things? Hello everyone. Let's see that it's recorded, and I hope that people enjoy a little bit of a smile. And I, while my slides should go on presenting mode already. Yes, and while before I'm going to the next slide and to present a little bit of myself, I actually want to ask you guys if you're in the chat, because I see the chat. Please post if you're rather from the audience, if you're rather on the startup side or on the investor side. Of course, the workshop, this talk is focused more on those who would maybe want to become a part of our Angel Up Academy. However, I know that in LinkedIn probably the audience is diverse. So please, could you post in the comments if you're on the startup side and you are looking on this talk from the perspective of how to learn how the investors make the decisions, or you're rather on the investors side and you want to learn how other investors make decisions. This is just for me to understand. Yes, I already see. Thank you so much of those who are posting. I just want to understand a bit of the composition of the audience today. But let's while you're posting and I'm looking at the chat for a little bit. Yeah, I guess it makes sense to present a little bit of myself, to explain who am I here and why am I talking. I've been with Startup Wise Guys, and I'm a partner and the general partner at Startup Wise Guys, and I've been with Wise Guys soon 6 years, and this is my year, I think, close to be year 9 in the startup and investment ecosystem. Been working. I'm originally from Ukraine, so I've been working originally on the Ukrainian market with focus on the United States, and now I'm in Europe with focusing on Europe mostly through Startup Wise Guys. And in my previous life, before I joined the startup and investment ecosystem, I was working in public relations and marketing for the first 5 years of my career. So, and then I was combining this experience with my current journey. And I see in the chat that we have both. We have both in the startup and event. That's super cool that we have both. Okay, well, good. I hope that you both will find it useful. All right. So I will talk today about. So there's different ways to select startups and to evaluate startups. There's plenty of ways. Pretty much every person or every company or every fund or every investor will probably have some similarities in understanding and going and how they select startups and how they evaluate startups, but there will be also a lot of differences because everyone, and this is our recommendation to you always should define your own strategy and following your own strategy and be consistent in that, defining what is exactly important for you personally if you're a business angel, or for you as a company, as an organization, as a fund, or as an incubator, accelerator, etc. So today we'll be covering this, well, pretty much three main topics on the how to select startups the Startup Wise Guys way. So this is how we do it. Covering a little bit of the due diligence. I will put a lot of efforts in the questions that we are asking. And my favorite part, which will come in the end, and I hope we'll have enough time for that, that's I will bring two case studies for you to see, to actually have a look at some real examples of our selection. So let's go just straight in. All right, so very basic question, or the like very philosophical question about how to select startups, but let's talk about the processes and criteria that we have at Startup Wise Guys. Before I go there, an important disclaimer: we are a pre-seed mainly investor. We're a group of funds and accelerators. So what I'm talking about is rather the perception of the early stage pre-seed seed investors, because there is a difference on investment, on the decision-making process when you're late stage or the early stage, right? So we are here talking mostly about the human-driven early stage investments when there is not enough data to analyze. In anything starting from, I don't know, Series A, probably the investment process will be heavily data driven, the financials driven, unit economics driven, customer interviews driven, which is still a case for the early stage, but sometimes we don't have data even to analyze. So there are pre-revenue startups that, and we cannot analyze the P&Ls, only the projections, which are, of course, not always will be the same, will be true. So this is important, right? So I'm talking from the perspective of the early stage investor. Okay, the process, how it looks like in our case. And if we have startups here who already applied to Startup Wise Guys or had an experience with us, you probably know that we have a lot of calls and a lot of one-on-one interactions. So what you see on the screen is that we have three stages. The first stage, pretty much the pre-selection, is fully controlled by our scouting department. Important, if you're a business angel, you probably don't have a scouting department, and you are the scouting department. But we are quite a large company already, so we have a separate dedicated team to analyze a lot of applications, because we analyze something around 3,000 applications per year, sometimes more. And we have to select out of 3,000 applications up to 100 per year. That's how many investments we are doing on the yearly basis. So we have a separate team focusing on analyzing startups. So the first part is, and important also, is that this is an inbound process. So when the startup applies through our, we use Dilum for the sourcing and for the collecting data information about startups. So we have an application. I will go into the very specifically applications a few slides later. And when the startup lands there, our scouting departments take the ownership of the first pre-selection on if it will pass and go further, or it will stay and will be rejected in the very beginning. So the application assessment, we are usually sending additional questions. First, like very generally, if the application is filled nicely, if there is enough information, if a startup put an effort there, because the quality of the application, as everywhere probably in the world, matters a lot. Additional questions if we are missing something, to see if it's a fit with our criteria. And if everything is okay and the startup replies fast enough and quality enough, then they are invited to the product day to present their product, their business, mainly with a focus on the product, to the scouting department that makes the first pre-check. Okay, this thing makes sense, kind of. And then, like, if the startup went successfully through the product day, it moves to the due diligence part. This stage number 2. In our case, the due diligence is the technical call, legal call, optional expert call. It goes. It is relevant for vertical based applications. For instance, we are in generally investing in B2B SaaS. It's one of the main direction on our investment. But we also have verticals like cybersecurity, sustainability, prop tech, fintech, and for those verticals, if a startup has a specific direction in their business, we ask them to have a call with a relevant person from the industry. One more step missing right here is we're also on the stage 2 have the managing director call. If a startup applies, we are primarily an acceleration program, while we can do the direct investments as well, but for us 90% of the deals go through the acceleration program. So it is also important to have a match with the managing director who evaluates the team in general, on the vibe of the team, on the match, on the programs, kind of the general business strategy. So that is the stage number 2. If the tech call, legal call, everything received like the green flags and good to go, then the stage 3 is pretty much the general kind of the part which leads to the decision-making process. Because stage 3 is mainly the interviews with the partners, with the general partners of the fund, and those who are taking part in the investment committee in the decision making, pretty much based on the opinions and the reviews of the colleagues on all the previous steps. In our case, we have the general fund that we have has 5 partners, and we have to have 4 yeses to make an investment, unless it's a really strong no from additional partner. Then we find the common ground together. So the partner calls, they're all one-on-ones. Then we have the investment committee where we review all the due diligence done by the colleagues before. We share our own opinions as partners, and then we have 2 options. Either if a startup is clear yes, then pretty much it goes straight into the offer and term sheet negotiations, and then if everything is all right, they receive the program invitation. Or if it's a no, well, we send the rejection. Or it could be also 2 additional parts, like a homework. Okay, we like the startup, but maybe they need to I don't know, show us what they do. Like the homework could be, for example, we're lacking the competitors analysis. Could you please send us competitors analysis or market analysis or something like that? And the additional calls also could be if we're, hey, well, this is very like specific, maybe it's a deep tech, maybe we're lacking some expertise from a specific person to give us additional opinion about the startup. So in the very end, in our case, while we do up to 100 investments per year, the selection process, and we have to invest a lot in a lot of startups, the selection process is actually very much human driven. And there's a lot of one-on-ones and a lot of one-on-one calls with separate people. We had the cohorts calls before, but right now we moved and we're testing for the past couple of months more the one-on-one approach. In this case, we avoid, from our perspective, we avoid biases, being biased when we're having group calls. So in this case, the opinions of people, of the experts that we collect, are more pure. That's so a startup can have up to 10 calls probably with us going through the selection process, and the process can last between as fast as a few days if it's a time pressure and the program starts soon, but they will still have these 10 calls, or it can last for like a month, for example, or maybe even 2 months if the program where they applied starts in 2 months. And then we have this period of time also to see them, to track them, to see how they're progressing over this period. That is the process. This, I don't know if it's complex or easy enough, but the point is that we value opinions. We collect information about startups from bits and pieces from different opinions. Criteria moving forward. And yes, what I didn't say in the beginning, we should have the questions, the time for questions in the end. So I'm looking at the chat, but pretty much by the end of the session, I will rather address the questions, unless my colleagues can address something in written in text there. So criteria, going there. For us, again, important. Every investor should have their own criteria they follow. Because you select, you as investors select your own strategy that you stick to. You agree in the beginning, and you cannot make like, one step right, one step back. It's important to be consistent in what you decided to. So in our case, there are two parts. That's how you saw on the previous slide, the pre-selection, where we check the status of the program, of the product, traction, revenue, vertical focus, and no-go factors. And then there is a partner stage, the one-on-one calls, where we see and check what our colleagues identified on the pre-selection, and we are talking a lot and focusing a lot on the team, on the founding team of the startup. Examples. There will be two examples following this strategy. So as I mentioned, we have different verticals, right? We have B2B SaaS, and then we have also like fintech, sustainability, cybersecurity, proptech, Web3. We have several directions in our investment focus, and the criteria actually for different verticals are different. Why so? Because industries are, while we remain the pre-seed investor, pre-seed/seed investor, the competition in different verticals is also different, and the variety of startups and the amount of startups in different verticals is different. For example, in B2B SaaS, the competition is very high. It's very general. We're working in B2B SaaS direction in general for 11 years, since the very beginning. It's when we started. But for some verticals, the amount of applications that we receive and the quality of startups that we receive can be different. Therefore, for example, for sustainability, for the pre-selection status of the product, we can accept the product on the stage of the MVP and further. On the traction, we can accept startups with no revenue, no traction, probably no meaning define the traction. So in this case, on this slide particular, I'm more talking about the financial side of it. On the verticals focus, we will see the vertical specific measurements, for example, CO2 emissions or green energy, anything that is related to our upcoming sustainability patch. And on the no-go factors in that specific vertical will be like for hardware, for example, because we decided that in that direction we will not invest in hardware-based startups, while, for example, in B2B SaaS track, we prefer in 99% or 90 plus 95%, we still prefer software startups, but we can do exceptions. In the sustainability, we agreed that we will not invest in hardware-based startups. Second example is fintech, and you can see that for the fintech, for the product, the expectations is that there is already a working product. For the traction revenue, there must be traction and there must be revenue already by the time for us to make an investment decision. For the verticals, it could be B2B and B2B2C specifically, and for the no-go factors, in this case, it's also hardware. And there is multiple different ones, but the point is that when you invest, you define criteria for your direction and for your decision, and they could be different for different verticals of startups, different cohorts, but it's important to be consistent in what you decided on. Okay, and I will have a breathe, get a sip of water, and we'll go next. Okay, application. The application, on the next slides, I will just show, again, our own application. So what we ask when startups apply, and how do we process that information, which parts for us are important, which parts, well, there's no not important parts, because otherwise we will not ask them. So which parts are important for us? Let's go. So basic. That is probably similar or the same for everyone. Problem solution, business model, market, traction, pitch deck has 0.7 and 0.6, fact sheet pretty much stage, pre-seed, seed, vertical revenue, how much are you looking for, if you have, meaning how much round are you raising, if you have any commitments, what is the valuation, and if your company is incorporated already and where. Just the picture to understand, okay, what is startup about. And then we go pretty much deeper into each part of the application. Uh, a really big part, you don't need to read all the questions, all the text here, because I will explain. The main point on this slide is that there's a lot of questions going toward the team. We'll get about the team. You probably know that the founding team is the most important for the decision-making process, and that's why it has the most questions to collect from the very beginning. Who are the key team members? How large is the team? How many people are working? If the founders have the industry experience in the startup that they're working on, if they have any stories to share, actually, which is quite interesting to read. So if founders achieved something great together in their previous journey, if they were working at all together in the previous journeys, in the previous years, how long do they know each other? And for us, number 6, for example, here is the application is related to the acceleration program. So we also need to understand, as a managing expectations of the founders as well, that we expect the CEO to be a part to participate in the acceleration program 90+% of the time, full time, pretty much. And for us, it's not acceptable to have a replacement. So it could not be, chief sales officer who is not the founder to participate in the program, right? So we expect founders to be a part of it. Problem solutions, so the problem summary, and what are you competing with right now? So what are the solutions out there that people are using to solve their problem without this particular startup existence, and the solution, easy peasy summary. How long was it took time for the team to build a prototype, what stage of the product, and important if it's the development was done in-house or through external partners. The last part is important for the legal due diligence, for instance, because it gives an additional information if a startup has in-house expertise, tech and product expertise to build the technology, or if they're using external partners, who are the people inside the company managing those external partners, and if all the legal agreements or on the IP rights, for example, are within the company. So if startups thought about it, the founders thought about it, and made all proper agreements to ensure that the technology will be with the company and will not stay with external partners, right? Because these things for the early stage startups, they just exist. The second part of the application is the market, business model, finances, strategy, and some other questions. Some other questions for you as investors might be whatever you decide. For you, it's relevant. For us, it's why us, pretty much, right? So why you decided to apply to us, because it's important to understand if there was even a thinking process to apply, or the startups applied to everywhere and they don't really understand where they're getting into. On the finance part, what is extremely important and what can create a no-go decisions is the cap table. So that is a separate topic, a separate discussion on the cap tables and how messed they could be, and how sometimes they are solvable, sometimes they're not. But the point is that in the ideal case, there are several co-founders. In the ideal case, they're more or less equal. There must be an option pool. If there is no option pool yet, the founders will have to create the option pool. And the founders, by the time of when they apply to us as a pre-seed investor, should either have no funding before, so it's only the founders in the cap table, or the early angels or the early investors have not more than maybe like 10, maybe up to 15% of the company max. Okay, moving forward. Remember, if you have questions, put them in the chat. We'll try to address them after. Not try. We will address them after in the end of the talk. Due diligence. And yes, if you have questions, still meanwhile, and some of them my colleagues, Azi, can technically address in the written form if you have some. Due diligence, important. I will ask you to write in the comments the answer to the question, and I will have another sip of water meanwhile. What types of due diligence exist out there? Let's say it's a refreshment of the memory because I already talked about it a little bit. So the types of due diligence are on this slide. Particularly, I'm talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 types. So please give me a 30 seconds break and write in the comments what types of due diligence exist out there. One, two, three. Let's see. If you don't know, I will obviously reveal. Okay, financial, commercial, technical, legal. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Technical. Yes. Yes. We're missing one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4. We're missing 2. Commercial, by the way, I don't know what is commercial, but it could be. Operations. We're missing 1 now. So now it's all of them on the slide. So just one is left. Of course, there are more. Right? But for the again, talking about the pre-seed stage right now. Financial, yes, it's all yes. Yes. Okay. Market, yes. Operational, legal, yep. Okay, almost everything but one, because usually people don't think that this is a part of the due diligence team as well. Yes, so one that is not has not been named in the comments yet. It's social and environmental sustainability factors. While it's not a must for all the startups, we consider this as a part of the questions that we're asking, and sometimes it can be a no-go, sometimes it's not, but if you are working in the sustainability sector, then of course yes. And then someone wrote just now ESG. Yes, exactly. So financial, legal, market, operations, and execution, which consists of the team as well and the processes that many of you also wrote in the chat. Technical due diligence, the technology infrastructure and the product, and social and environmental sustainability factors. On the legal part, it's an incorporation, if it exists or it doesn't, where it is incorporated. Why it is important? Because in our case, we can invest in most of the incorporations, like in most of the legal in countries that is typical for Europe, UK, or US. But not all investors can do that because sometimes, and as we have startups here in the audience, you have to know if you're incorporated, I don't know, in Slovakia, and you're talking with investors that can invest only in UK-based companies, then they will not be able to invest. So you have to ask these questions when you're fundraising. So on the legal side, on the market, the growth of the market, if it's a new market, if it's an existing market, established one, and how large is it, and if it's growing, the competition. So on the legal side, the IP, the founders' agreements, if they're in place, if there's any compliance risks, if there are any GDPR risks for the European startups primarily, and if everything is in place from the very beginning. Important. Um, this is the part, for example, the legal, we work with early stage startups. Sometimes they're not incorporated, sometimes they're just recently started. So we don't expect founders to have everything by default already in place as an early stage investor, but we map things, what is there, what is missing, and what is wrong. So maybe there are some things that are actually wrong, and then it could be an issue to invest. And if some things are just not in place, if the founders are aware of it and if they're willing to create those documents and fix things. So, and then for the next stage investors, these things would be a must already, right? So you already have to have everything in place, because it's not possible that you're going to, I don't know, Series A and you don't have, I don't know, whatever, founders agreements or something. On the financial side, as I mentioned before, sometimes there is no revenue in a startup in the pre-seed stage, but we expect founders to have a thinking process of calculating the future, the existing expenses, because even if there's no revenue, there's already expenses always, and to understand if they understand in general the math of the future projections. Example of the tech due diligence, just a screenshot from one of the examples from one of the tech due diligence. What we are checking, we're checking scalability, transparency, agility, reliability. There is a comment from our technical expert, and then they're checking the technology and if it works, if it doesn't work, if there are any red flags, and if there are any yellow flags, or everything is in place. What happens if it's a green flag? That's awesome. If it's a yellow flag or the red flag, then then this becomes a part of the discussion in the investment committee to see if it's fixable, or it is something that will require a startup to rewrite the whole product from scratch, which can happen. And then we also evaluate if it's a no-go for us, or it is something that we can live with. Questions to ask. We have 20 minutes left, and I'm pretty sure that we can cover a few case studies, so I hope so. Okay, so questions to ask. I'm talking from the Startup Wise Guys perspective, from the general investors perspective, and also from my personal perspective, because I've been, some questions I like more, some questions I invented or stole with pride from somewhere that I enjoy more, and then I collect answers to. So, very general one. So if there are startups out there, or if there are investors out there that don't know what questions to ask, super easy, right? So you just go and Google 100 questions investor will ask entrepreneurs, and pick your own favorite ones. But in general, of course, there are like 10 approximated 10 typical ones that every investor will ask: the composition of the team, the market, product, traction, competition, business model, financials, legal agreements, the funding ask, and the use of funds, why you need this money and where they will be used to. What is important from these questions? That according to some statistics, even though there's plenty of questions that investors will ask a startup, the VCs and in general investors consider that management team, the founding team, is the most important factor to assess. On the second place is the offerings of a product or a service or technology on the highly ranked scale, and the market is the third one. If the market is there, if it's a large enough market to take the product to take the startup on the 100 million annual revenue, whatever it is. So if the startup is addressing a problem large enough to grow globally, right? So as a startup, these are three main factors for you to consider. You probably know about that, but be aware that there's also researchers behind that. Um, since the team is the most important factor, as an investor, from my perspective, you just go wild and you ask anything that you would like to know, because this is something that um, sometimes the questions are even sensitive. So for founders, I usually tell them to expect that they can receive any types of questions. So I don't know if there is a proper agreement in place, I don't know, with the wife in terms of in case of the founder's death. This is a wild example, but the point is that about the founding team, it should be one of the largest and longest topics of discussion. How well do you know each other? Where did you meet? If you have, what kind of background you all have, the founding team. Why? What is the motivation to spend 10 years on this company? Because it's a overall for pre-seed stage startups, probably the approximate length of spending your time is 10 years. So it's not 1 or 2, it's not even 5, it's a way longer period. And they have to understand that uh, if there is a like a problem founder fit, so if there are market founder fit, if there is an expertise in the market that founders hold, if they're full time, and who is in the cap table. So if there's any previous investors, if there's the key employees that are already owning equity, if there's the option pool, and well, yeah, who are the stakeholders. Um, if a few words about, and then I said that go wild, right? So a few questions. While there are this typical questions that everyone should ask, like 100 questions that an investor will ask. Of course, you will not ask 100 questions to a startup. Probably you will ask less. That's why it's actually important to have these bits and pieces of different people's experts' opinions to cover the overview of the startup from all possible angles, to their risk pretty much, and to have the picture. Um, but yeah, but some things might be a little bit tricky, and what I don't like about the standard questions about you, because usually good startup has already the prepared answer, right? And it's a good startup, it's a good founding team that would go and prepare the answers for the most well-known questions that investors are typically asking. But if you're creative enough, or try to come up with questions that are not from that 100 questions list that you can Google. What I particularly enjoy asking, I don't usually do it, not always do it, but sometimes if some team dynamics triggers me, or there's something suspicious about like what is exactly happening there, like where's there's like this just feeling that maybe there's something behind it. So just some of the questions that I like asking. For example, the number one, what you do you like working about working together as a founding team, which is an easy question to ask to answer. But the second part is what you don't like, and sometimes what I'm trying to get there is a feeling of the team dynamics, how open they are, how they trust each other. If they don't, I don't know if they feel equal with each other, because sometimes there's a dominative majority shareholder and a small co-founder that is defined as co-founder, but then you're like, are you a real co-founder, or you're like an employee under this large guy that actually doesn't consider you as a partner, but rather consider you as an employee because of whatever reason. um yeah, and sometimes these things like actually reveal the show some maybe patterns. They either prove that okay, that there's a good team dynamics, and actually the initial suspicion was wrong, and there's like everything is fine. Or sometimes you actually see that people, for example, honestly don't believe in the answer that there is nothing we don't like about working each other, because if you work it with each other long enough, you know that there's something that always you're always adapting, because you're different people. It's like, well, you always don't like something about your life partner, uh, there's some things that you maybe close your eyes on or you agree with, but there's always something that you don't enjoy fully, right? And for me, it's important to see if they're able to share it. The second question that I ask sometimes is about if they would receive, if a founding team would receive an acquisition offer, what would be the acquisition offer? It is not the same as the exit strategy question, because how I build the question is uh, what would be the acquisition offer if they will receive it soon? Soon meaning, I don't know, today, tomorrow, in the coming week. So short term. And what I'm trying to understand from that answer is that the process and the mindset of the founders. Of course, there's always people who can try and answer what you want to hear. Um, I don't know that we're building a unicorn or whatever it is, but in most of the cases, people are actually start thinking and talking out loud what they're thinking about. And what I try to avoid, or let's say it won't be a no go, but it will be a pattern to dig deeper into if the founding team, if the founder will actually name a price they would sell the company for in the short term. Uh, because that might mean that they actually would consider selling the company fast enough. It is not the truth fully, because it's all art. I don't know, but it could mean that the founders do consider, selling the company for 10 million, which would not make sense for a VC fund to invest in if they're investing in, I don't know, 3 million valuation or 4 million valuation, because this will not return the fund. And then the third question, when will you step down as a CEO, is something that I ask sometimes founders. That, to me, if they feel, if it feels for me that these are very arrogant CEOs, sometimes I think that they might be too over controlling and too sure about everything. And again, so there's no right or wrong answers here, but I'm trying to understand how people think behind, if they show something that would be defined for me as a red flag or something to be aware of, or not. If the person would be offended with this question, it would be probably a red flag for me. If someone would consider to think through what actually could happen for them to step down as a CEO, this is rather a positive mindset, let's say, of being flexible and of thinking what is best for the company. Okay, let's move forward. What to do with all these questions in general? uh, one of the disclaimers is that we do evaluate a lot of startups in a year, and of course sometimes, while there are standard questions, we also have this inner AI trained as the people who are in the industry for a long time. And if you are, as investors, are new to the field, one of the probably only ways to be better in getting this, to asking questions and getting the answers, to processing the answers, is just to talk with as many startups as possible. It will create your own strategy, help you create your own strategy and patterns that you will follow. So go for it, let's say. And we have 10 minutes left, and I will actually skip the evaluation part, and I will go to the case studies, because it's the most exciting part in this talk from my perspective. But since I'm running the talk, then I go with what is most exciting. Okay, so the next slide, I will show you two examples of two real startups. There will be no names, and I hope that you will not guess what are the startups. But I want to just to show what kind of, how the final process looks like on our side. Of course, it takes way more time, and it's quite. Of course, it will be just like a glimpse for you in the process here, because it takes a lot of discussion, it takes a lot of fights between on the investment committee, on the passionate people defending or protecting the startup they liked or the startup they didn't like. And of course it takes a lot of time to gather information and reveal it and put together. But and if you would be in the Angels Up Academy, for example, we will actually go into the gamified mode, and you will try to make the assessment and the evaluation yourself. But here in the short curated environment, I will just give you some overview. Okay, so there will be two startups. I will read out loud the information because it's a lot of text. There's startup number 1 and startup number 2. We'll go with startup number 1 first. Be ready. Okay, so startup number 1 is an AI solution helping to anticipate communication risks and opportunities in the area of disinformation. The problem is the monitoring solutions that companies use right now, they are not there. They have the high costs, and they're not meant for real-time assessments. They lack measurement. They just give you information, sometimes with the delays, and they specifically don't. Not all of the solutions identify the risky communication that could trigger a brand risk for the company. The solution is the technology with an early warning tool, software against communication threats. So the company gets automatic alerts on the forecasted trends and incidents up to 24 hours ahead, which means is that they also give the real-time insights, etc. Which means that, for example, if somewhere in social media there is a how do you call it? Like, I don't know, blackmailing, not the blackmailing, but the negative communication that is happening towards a brand. Something happened with the usual monitoring solutions. You might not see that fast enough, but they would warn the brand before that there is a risk that this communication might grow into the something bigger than just a threat of annoyed people somewhere. Startup number 2, on the right side. They provide a platform builder that allows businesses to create custom platforms, saving up to 80% of time and budget. The problem is that large organizations often struggle to choose between off-the-shelf SaaS products and expensive custom solutions for managing communities, training, collaboration events, and developing scalable and resilient digital products. The solution is it's an all-in-one platform, all the tools an organization needs to complete the 360 experience around not only customers and employees, but with all the people who gravitate to the business network. Startup is the primary partner with which it brings context in the CRM and life and the meaningful data. Overview. You will not get the full information about startups, unfortunately, right? Because it's just the shrink of everything. So the startup number 1, that was yes. So the startup number 1 has the traction around 30 to 40,000 in monthly revenues. It was established in February 2023. The valuation is 4.5 million. They are raising 500K. They haven't raised before. They're bootstrapped. The team is 12 people in total. There are 2 co-founders. Both of the founders are full-time. They are equal in terms of the shares, and they have an option pool. The startup number 2 has 3,000 in revenue. They were established in June 2020. Their valuation is 3.5 million. They're raising 1 million. They raised before 1.6 million. There are 2 founders, 2 co-founders. There are 3 people team in total. They're not full-time. The co-founders split between two co-founders is 60% one, 10% the second one, and they have the rest of the percentage goes to the initial investors from whom they raised 1.6 million. Okay. And here, let me try to engage you a little bit more. And of course, I will not be able to talk with you, but try just putting in the chat some questions that you would ask to both of the startup, and just indicate, I don't know, one, two dots, and like the question that you would ask. Think about it. We have 4 minutes left, and we have 2 more slides to reveal the information about 2 startups, and but I would like you to think of what kind of questions you would ask them. And while you're asking questions, I actually just learned from my colleagues that the stream will finish sharp at the 1 p.m. my time. So I actually cannot read your questions. So I will reveal the information fast because I have 2 minutes left apparently. Did not know. But but yes, I see one question, but it's okay. Okay, so the point is, for me, I will reveal the concerns that we collected while having the one-on-ones with the startups, and what was the decision we made for both of them. So for the startup number 1, the revenue was coming from the project-based sales. It was not a recurring revenue. The co-founders have technical analytical experience. They have no sales experience. They already have the renewal case study. The customers are coming from different countries. The sales cycle is long, and they need help in sales in general. The startup number 2, the founders were working together for certain years. They have similar background. The co-founders have similar background in design. They raised previously 1.7 million, and they had a 150,000 burn rate at some period of time. So they burned all the money. The founders are not full-time. They're not selling right now because they have to fix the product. And there's a bunch of other things, but I have 2 minutes left. The point is here is that while the valuation of these 2 startups was like one was a bit higher and one was a bit lower, there's always a bunch of things that you evaluate that are like good things. I don't know, the renewal, for example, the customers coming from different countries, and there are risks, right? So I don't know, project-based sales or etc. But in our case, we made a decision to invest in the startup number 1 because the risks were the benefits, the potential of the startup was higher than the risks, and we didn't invest in startup number 2. And the point for this one last minute for me as a summary, and I would love you to join the Angels Up Academy so we can dig deeper into this exercise, was that first, there's always risks when you invest. And if there's no risk, it might be not a startup, because there's always something that is, even for everything that is, it cannot be everything beautiful, never, for the early stage and even for the later stage deals. Spend a lot of time on learning about the team, and try to get the most information from different angles from the experts that you trust. And please define your own criteria to invest in startups. This is a little bit shrinked in the end, but I hope you got some of the idea of the startup selection and due diligence. And we are just 1 minute behind.
Yes, killing it. Thank you so much, Alexa. Really, it was amazing. I'm sure people have lots of questions. So if you do have questions, please feel free to reach out directly. I'm sure we can answer them privately as well. And again, if you have any questions or any doubts, or you'd like to receive more information about Angels Up Academy, feel free to use the link that I posted on the chat, or just reach out directly to me. Thank you so much, Alexa.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone who joined. Thanks.